Hello and welcome to another of our Business Roots Chats. I'm here with my good friend Nick Price, who's the CEO of Bright Purple. Nick, how are you?
Warm.
Warm. It's quite a hot plate. It's the lights that do it.
Yeah, and this head doesn't help either. So,
No, exactly. So, tell us a little bit about Bright Purple.
Technology recruiters, been in business for the company's been going for 28 years. Mm-hmm. We provide technology professionals and all of the business professionals that are around that, so salespeople, etc., to a wide variety of clients in the UK and abroad on a permanent and contract basis.
Excellent. So that's mid-90s setup. Have I got that about right?
1995.
So I'm exactly right.
Yeah, absolutely. Right in the middle.
Right in the middle. Excellent. Now, I've been kind of part of that journey with you for a few years since I've known you, and I know there's been some ups and downs. I'll come back to that in a minute, but tell me where it all started. Tell me about the young... Now,
I wasn't young, so...
The people who are watching and listening to this will be able to tell by your accent that you're not an Edinburgh local. So tell me about the young 8-year-old, 9-year-old Nick Price. What did he want to do?
Escape Wales.
Okay. Pick, you've done that.
I've done that, yeah. So no, I was born in Wales in a Welsh mining village, and typical kind of happy childhood village life. And then as I got older, I suppose it was the start of the end of the mining industry. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in '77, I left Wales, moved to Scotland.
Would you have gone into mining, do you think?
No, I was lined up to go into mining. I was lined to be. My original life was to be an apprentice electrician. So, right. Which was one of the reasons why I came to Scotland, because I didn't want to be an apprentice electrician. No, I was lined up to go to the pit where my father worked, and I could just see the end. Unfortunately, a lot of my friends couldn't see the end, but I could see the end, and I made the right decision. I came here. I moved to Scotland as a 16-year-old, found a job, and kind of rest is history.
Wow. So, and I won't do the exact calculations on this one.
62.
62. Yeah. So you've been. You did that, not me. So you've been.
I'm good with it.
I was about to say that you've been in Scotland far longer than you were in Wales.
Yeah, and actually, so I suppose when you come from another country and you move to somewhere, you feel like a bit of a outsider. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when I moved to Scotland, I never felt like an outsider. So when I moved from a small village to Glasgow, I lived in Glasgow for 15 years. I immediately felt welcomed. I had my troubles because when I moved here, I was I had a Welsh accent, like a totally Welsh accent. So that got me into a few scrapes, I can tell you. But actually, I never felt unwelcomed here. So it was one of the reasons why I never went home, because I always felt welcomed here, whether that was through my social life or business life, basically. And Scotland then becomes your home, and then, not saying you forget about your homeland, because you don't, but I'm torn. So, things like rugby, for instance, I support Wales, but everything else I support Scotland. So I'm very Scottish. I mean, I consider myself Scottish.
Okay, excellent. Now, did you kind of drop a pin in a map, or did you decide I'm going to go to Glasgow in this?
My sister had left the army and
Right.
Had found herself in Glasgow. Asked me to try it out. That's why I ended up in Glasgow.
Yeah, and you've got a fairly good military history in your family, haven't you? Because your sister was in the army.
Sister was army. Her son and daughter
both army.
Both army. Brother RAF. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
you never fancied that.
Yeah, I'm not a regimented person. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's probably that probably shows the fact that I never went to university. Everything I've done for myself, mm-hmm. and I've kind of, in some respects, almost made it up as I went along.
So it's come from some kind of inspiration. I'm inspired to do this. I've seen somebody else do this. I want to follow that.
Yeah, and I just wanted my own life. I mean, everybody in my family was military, and I was quite happy, as I say, making it up as I went along, one job to the next, until I found what I wanted to do.
Okay. Well, let's go there. So you got to Glasgow. What was the first thing you did in Glasgow then? What
try to learn the accent. So
right.
The first thing I did was, and I mean, this kind of shows how old I am, everything was on tape.
Right.
So I bought a load of Billy Connolly tapes because I decided that I was getting into quite a few scrapes because I was alien to Scotland. I was Welsh with a what I considered a beautiful singing accent. Obviously, Glaswegian gangsters didn't think I was, that attractive. So I used to get into a few scrapes. So I decided that when I started working, I got a job, I started working, and I just thought, yeah, actually, I need to kind of blend in a little. And I'd heard about this geezer called Billy Connolly. But I just bought a load of tapes, used to practice, basically trying to be a Glaswegian. And then softened my voice. The interesting thing about that is my sister, who still lives in Scotland, sounds like she's come from the same valley that we grew up in.
Yeah.
She never ever tried to lose her accent. I tried desperately.
But you failed in that, Nick.
And I failed.
One of your few failures there.
Well,
but it doesn't matter.
No, but when you're Welsh, the word year, yeah? So what year is it? This is my year. Yeah. Come year.
It's all the same word.
Then you're Welsh, basically.
It's the only part of the Welsh accent my dad's still got.
Yeah, exactly. I've tried. I once had a lesson in trying to stop saying you, but I can't stop it. So even after the lesson, which was a total waste of money, but anyway, never mind. There you go.
So what profession did you, or job did you do? What was your first? I mean, you didn't jump straight.
I had a brilliant experience. I moved to Glasgow, and it was 1977. I arrived, and I thought, my sister said to me, go on a dole because they'll give you money. And I was like, all right, okay, have a holiday. I just finished school. So I went down to the local dole office, and I sat there thinking, wow, what's this all about? And anyway, a lady behind the counter said to me, yeah, you can, welcome to Scotland. We'll sign you on. I can't even remember, it's like 17 quid a week or something like that, and I was like, oh, wow, cool, 17 quid. I'm 16, I've never had any money, so 17 quid sounds all right. But anyway, she said to me, the only thing is, when we offer you interviews, you have to go to an interview, and if you get the job or not, that's that's kind of irrelevant, but you have to go to the interview. Yeah. I got home from the dole office, and my sister said, oh, there's a phone call for you from the dole office. And I was like, oh, I must have not filled in a form or something like that. And I called the lady back, and she said, you got an interview tomorrow. And I was like, I thought I was coming for a holiday. I mean, I thought I was at least starting on a holiday. But went for an interview the next day to Andrew Muirhead and Son, who still exists today, leather tanners, part of now Scottish Leather Group. And I got a job that next day. So I arrived, and the plan to have a holiday didn't quite work out. I was working the next day. Well, I was working the next week.
What did you do for him?
Well, first thing I did was sweep floors. So basically,
it was a
manufacturing plant.
Do stuff.
They still today they manufacture leather for the world.
Okay.
And when I joined them, they had customers like IKEA. When IKEA were nothing like they are now. We were manufacturing the leather for IKEA. One of our sister companies was manufacturing the leather for Ford, for the motor cars. Another one was manufacturing the leather for Air Force One. So Air Force One's leather was made in Glasgow by our group. Yeah. So and a lot of that stuff is still the same today. Yeah. But I was 16, no education, and
they gave you a brush.
They gave me a brush and said, that bit over there, you sweep in, get on with it. 10 years later, I gave the brush back and said, that's enough for me, and I need to do something.
So you actually got some promotion. You got to production manager. You saw a bit of potential.
Yeah, I worked in. I mean, I did lots of jobs inside there, and I was just inquisitive. So I was. A lot of people were kind of. It was interesting because I think if you think about those years, the 70s. People worked in companies for 40, 50 years. Yeah. My father worked underground for a long time. And everybody I knew worked in jobs for 40 years, 50 years.
Life.
And when you move into a factory that's been going for a company that's been going for over 200 years, and it's a manufacturing company, what you find is mum and dad work there, daughter works there, niece works there, uncle. So basically, I was working amongst families that worked in the same companies, but they worked at the same machine for 20 years. I wasn't going to do that. So I moved from brush to this, to that, this. Became one of the color technicians. So I learned how to make the colors for leather. So I'd work at IKEA to somebody from IKEA, and they would talk about, we need this red for this particular couch. Okay, then you go away and make the red. So it was fascinating, and then I got into the management side and production management, and running people, which was interesting because you were running people who'd worked there significantly longer than you had. But and I did that for 10 years.
Okay. And then, let me just do a quick calculation. You're now kind of 26. It's probably 1986,
Something like that.
something
Yeah.
like that.
I left the company because I had a feeling that I would be quite good at selling, and you know I mean I'm a people person, so you know I'm comfortable when I'm with people. I'm terrible on my own. Yeah, I hate my own company. So I had a feeling that I would be good at sales. So I left the company for a supplier who sold chemicals into that industry. I worked for them for a while, and then I just had a few. I mean, I had a few jobs in sales, and yeah, I mean that's kind of
And that filled the gap.
that filled the gap until I fell into my industry.
Okay, and then so you ended up in sales in recruitment.
I ended up losing my job. So I worked for an English company, and it was recession time, and it was pretty tough out there. And the English company that I was working for were cutting costs, and they decided to shut Scotland. And I was in Scotland, so I was one of the ones that got ousted, basically. So I got ousted, but I got ousted in a serious recession.
Yeah.
And yeah, I basically met my wife. I met my wife, and she was moving from Sweden, and she was on a boat when I lost my job. So she was moving over.
Coming over.
She was in her car with her car packed, while I was busy handing back the keys to my company car and everything, and unable to tell her because mobile phones weren't quite invented at that time.
So, but you're out of work.
Yeah.
Is that the point you set up Bright Purple?
No, so I was out of work for just shy of 6 months. Yeah, I mean it was desperate. It was desperate recession. There were just no jobs. And what happened was, I went to Edinburgh for an interview for a job. So I saw a job. I went for an interview, and the recruiter who I went to see said to me, we'll put you forward for this job, but actually, you'd be quite good in our industry. Would you like to have a chat with us? And I was like, well, what do you do? And they said, well, we're recruiters. We're involved in people. And I was like, right, okay. I don't understand, but anyway, let's have a chat. So we had a chat, and the lady that ran the company or the office for a large PLC said, yeah, we'd love to have you work for us. So I dumped the other job and took that job. And I worked for them for a year, and then I was hijacked in a bar by somebody else who said, come and work for us. So I went into tech recruitment.
Right. So you got a bit of recruitment experience, then a bit of tech recruitment experience, and now we're closing towards kind of the mid-90s, and you go, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to set up Bright Purple.
Yeah.
And I know I've simplified that, but take me through
no.
that
So
decision,
I worked in sales recruitment for a year. I was in a bar one night. Guy from who owned a tech recruitment company said to me, "Hey, I hear you're a recruiter." Somebody introduced me, and they said, do you fancy tech recruitment? And I was like, I haven't got a clue what tech is. So I'm good at selling, but I'm not sure what you're talking about. Anyway, I decided I'd go for it, so I went for it. I worked for them for 5 years, and at the end of 5 years, there were some things that I just didn't like about the company. I loved the company. There were some things I didn't like about the leadership, and I decided that I was, going to do it myself. And so I left with another guy, and the two of us set up Bright Purple.
Looking back, good decision?
Well, it's given me the freedom I've got today. So yeah, I mean, I suppose I could have made lots of decisions, but yeah, for me, it's been a good decision.
Now, I'm going to ask you a question in a second. I'll give you a kind of a moment to think about it. So, early on in our relationship when we first met, and I was my business was quite young.
Yeah.
I remember sitting in your office in Rose Street, and I was moaning about something, which I do a lot, as you know.
Yeah, you do.
And you said to me, Matthew, in any business, you can sum it up with two problems that you'll always get: money and people.
Yep.
And I've never forgotten that, by the way. And I now pretend that's my advice and I give it to other people.
It was probably somebody else who gave it to me, to be fair, but so,
You said
I'm
that.
pretty sure I didn't commandeer that, but anyway.
Exactly. But you're dead right. You can fundamentally, so and the reason I mentioned that little memory is because next question is about the challenges you've been facing over you get through the lifespan of Bright Purple, because there obviously has been some and highs and lows and all these things. If you take the kind of the standard money and people thing out, what challenges have you faced?
None. Money and people. No, I'm joking. What challenges have I faced? Wow.
What kind of things made it difficult?
I mean, business is it's a living, breathing thing, isn't it? I mean, it's, you wake up in the morning and the world is amazing. By 11:30, you've had a cup of coffee, you're feeling great, and then the world falls in, something happens. It's, I treat every day as it's a new day, and that's what's exciting about it as well. It's a new day. There'll be good parts of my day, and there'll be horrible parts of my day. Sometimes it'll be money issues. Sometimes it'll be people issues. Sometimes it'll be grumpy customers. Sometimes it'll be amazing customers who make you feel incredible. It's really hard to kind of put your finger on other challenges, because I've 28 years with this company. Yeah. I'm bold. I didn't start this job bold, I can tell you that. But so there are some pressures to it. But on the same side, hiring incredible people, and working with people who start as juniors.
Well, your sales director's like that, right? And your
two of my board. My finance director was a junior in our finance team.
Yes.
She's had 2 children inside the company, and she never made any excuses. She just worked her socks off, yeah. And now she's on the board. She's a board member. In a couple of weeks' time, she'll be a shareholder. And for my number 2, he joined me. He was a doorman in a club, I think, or something. Yeah, he was a doorman in a club or something. He has never stopped working hard since they joined, ever. I mean, I don't ever remember him saying, I don't feel well.
His work ethic is inspirational.
Is incredible.
Yeah,
But his work ethic is my work ethic. Her work ethic is my work ethic.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the point is that I think that, for these people, they're the next generation. I'm coming to the end of my time. I can't keep going.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. When are you going to stop?
I have a work ethic that my father and mother put into me, and I put into my children, and I put into my staff, or I put into the people who work for me, because to me, if you want to get somewhere, then you got to work for it, yeah. And the people that work for me have that. So when am I going to stop? I'm never going to stop. I've got a funny feeling I'll be, the kind of I'll be the Jockstein of the recruitment industry. One day I'll be sitting at my desk and they'll find me kind of, with a CV in my hands, keeled over, and they'll peel me back, and I'll still have a CV in my hands. So I don't know. I'm not going to stop.
Oh, good. So you've not got any kind of retirement plans or hobby?
Well, my wife's got a retirement plan. No, I don't have a retirement. I'm doing too many things. I'm involved in LifeLink. I'm honorary consul for Lithuania. I'm involved in lots of different things, and because people are my life, then I think I'd be a terrible retiree. I couldn't spend my time on a golf course. I've got to be doing something with people.
Excellent. Okay. Now, imagine you've gone back to the beautiful Green Valley in Wales, and you come across young Nick Price, 12-year-old Nick Price. What advice would you give him?
12. Not sure I was sensible enough to take advice when I was 12, but I would just say, I wouldn't change anything. I would just say, have a go. What have you got to lose? I mean, I had a go. I didn't have an education. I could have, I suppose, if I could go back, would I say get an education? Well, back then, education wasn't, I'm not going to say it wasn't important, because of course it was important, but education didn't define you back then. Hard work defined you. And so when you've grown up like that, it's really hard to think about anything else, So I would just tell myself to do what you did. And, you're going to make mistakes, but surely we all learn our best lessons when we make mistakes, Yeah, I would tell myself not to have a perm I permed hair in the 80s because I got a funny feeling that's why my hair fell out, because I had a perm. But yeah, I had a Michael Jackson in the 80s, and I've got a funny feeling that's what it did this to me.
Well, that's what we'll say. We'll say it was the perm that did it.
Absolutely, it was the perm, Michael Jackson.
Superb. Well, listen, thank you for that, Nick. You've been inspirational, so thank you for spending some time with us.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
So that was Nick Price from Bright Purple. If you want to learn more about what Bright Purple does, then please, you'll find them online. So have a look at what they do.
Thank you.
We have more of these Business Roots chats on your usual podcast platforms. So take a look, and you'll be able to hear from many more interesting and inspirational people just like Nick. But for now, see you later.